Empire.
Welcome to Inside the Cap. I'm your host, Joel Corey. You can find me on Twitter at Corey Joel. That is CORRYJOEL. And you can also read my regular CBSSports.com column, An Agent's Take on NFL contracts and salary cap matters. This week, we're going to look at two things: the Green Bay Packers dilemma with Davante Adams, and also what is next for Ja'Wuan James. Davante Adams weighed in on Aaron Rodgers' discontent for the Green Bay Packers in an interview with Colin Cowherd last week. He raised some eyebrows when he said, "It doesn't mean potentially I'd be gone, but I definitely have to do some extra thinking if my guy wasn't there," when asked to evaluate his future in Green Bay. That could mean a couple of things. From a player's perspective, I could see how they could draw the conclusion that if an organization is willing to alienate Aaron Rodgers, then the same is going to happen to me. The last thing the Packers want is that type of thought gaining traction, because that can be devastating to team building. We saw that happen with the second three-peat Bulls back in the late 90s. Going into the third three-peat season, General Manager Jerry Krause had said that this team go 82-0, and I'm not bringing them back. Phil Jackson won't be the coach. Unusual take for a team that's winning championships. That stance by Jerry Krause led to Michael Jordan's retirement, and Phil Jackson was gone, and Scottie Pippen bolted, so did Dennis Rodman. And free agents looked at that for a few years immediately after their departure and was like, "Hey, you're going to treat Michael Jordan like that? Man, how are you going to treat me?" So that's the last thing Green Bay wants to gain hold. As a former agent, my thought was, this is Davante Adams saying, you know what? If I'm going to have to put up with an unproven quarterback in Jordan Love on a go-forward basis to stay here, you're going to have to pay me a premium. Adams is in a contract year. 2021 is the final year of the 4-year extension he signed at the end of the 2017 regular season. It was a 4-year, $58 million extension. He's scheduled to make $13.25 million in the final year of his contract. He's got a cap number of $16,787,500. Adams' first team All-Pro in 2020 was arguably the best receiver in the NFL. Caught 115 passes last year, which is a Green Bay Packers record. Had 1,374 receiving yards. Led the NFL with 18 touchdowns, which also tied a Green Bay Packers record of Sterling Sharp's. And led the NFL in 98.1 receiving yards per game. He's going to turn 29 in December, currently 28. He already has a case to be the highest paid receiver in football based on last year. So I don't expect this to be an easy negotiation, whether Aaron Rodgers has a long-term future in Green Bay or not. Highest paid receiver by average yearly salary, and that's going to be a more important metric with Green Bay than other teams because of the way Green Bay does contracts. That in Green Bay, they don't do them conventionally. There are three teams who operate like Green Bay. Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers are the other two. And the only guaranteed money in a Green Bay Packer contract is signing bonus, unless your name is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the only guy, quarterback exception, that has conventional guarantees, base salary guarantees, or roster bonus guarantees. Other than that, Green Bay has these roster bonuses third, fifth day of the league year, in the second and third contract years to substitute as guarantees, but aren't secured. So you can still get cut. Ask Nick Perry about that. A couple of years ago happened to him, had a roster bonus, didn't get it, cut. So structure is going to be a little bit different. So that necessity would be on any extension with Davante Adams is going to be a huge signing bonus. Now, highest paid receivers, DeAndre Hopkins signed a 2-year extension last year of Arizona right before the regular season started, made him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL at $27.25 million per year, $54.5 million over 2 years. And deals are done in new money. When you negotiate a contract that when a guy has years left on his deal, negotiations are over the new money and how many years. That's what the negotiation is about. That was every veteran contract I had guy had remaining time on it was primarily over those two things. Obviously, how much money is going to be guaranteed and so forth. But in Green Bay's case, that's a secondary issue because of the structure. Number 2 was Julio Jones at $22 million per year. The two other guys in the $20 million per year receiver club. Keenan Allen at $20.025 million per year, and Amari Cooper at $20 million per year. Now, it's hard to believe that if the Packers and Davante Adams can't get a deal done, that he won't get a franchise tag. He would fall under the 120% provision of franchise tags. The franchise tag, the formula number is going to be irrelevant in his case. And the calculation is basically you go 120% of his salary, and there's certain bonuses you exempt out, like workout bonuses. So that means you're working off of $16.35 million. 120% of that is $19.62 million. Then you add back in the workout bonus after you do the 120% calculations. So a franchise tag in 2022 for Davante Adams is going to be $20.12 million. So one big problem with that, Green Bay has the worst cap situation in the NFL for 2022. They've got, according to NFLPA data, of 33 players under contract, $221,393,875 in cap commitments for 2022. And Bills GM Brandon Beane recently said something enlightening. He, in addition to a statement about cutting a player who don't want to get vaccinated, he said that the uncertainty about having stadiums at full capacity was affecting cap planning, and that the Bills were using $195 to $200 million as a projection for the 2022 salary cap. So the notion that because the media rights deals were done, 22 salary cap was going to take some massive jump, not true. If he's using that as a barometer for a 2022 salary cap, you can imagine it's not out of step with other NFL teams. So the cap's probably not going to get much more above where it was in 2019, $198.2 million. So that being said, Green Bay is going to have an overage of maybe by the time it's all said and done, and you have your full top 51 accounting, which is all that counts during the offseason, 40 to 45 million overage. Yeah, that's significant, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what the Saints were this year. They had to shed about $100 million in cap commitments just to be compliant. Then you have to $40 million overage, not including a franchise tag for Davante Adams, because I can't imagine that they would not franchise him and let him walk out the door for a third-round compensatory pick only in 2023. Some people have said, well, his trade value would be close to the third-round compensatory pick would be close to the trade value for DeAndre Hopkins. Well, that's not a very good barometer, at least in my opinion, because consensus opinion is that the Arizona Cardinals fleeced the Houston Texans and that DeAndre Hopkins trade. And just to refresh your memory, it was DeAndre Hopkins and a 2024 round pick for David Johnson, a 2022 round pick, and a 2021 fourth round pick. The Stephon Diggs trade a couple of days later, right around that same time, may be more indicative of the Davante Adams trade value, provided he doesn't fall off a cliff this year if push came to shove, if you wanted to tag and trade him. That's Stephon Diggs went from Minnesota to Buffalo. Stephon Diggs in a 2027 round pick for a 2021 round pick, a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, and a 2021 4th round pick. So you should be able to get a pretty decent haul for Davante Adams. Now, knowing what Davante Adams would want, and if you're not willing to pay it, do you make a preemptive strike and do like an NBA team when there's a signability issue? You trade a guy sooner rather than later. And if you're going to trade Aaron Rodgers, or Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there long term, and this is his last year, and you're going to shift to Davante Adams, that'd be something to consider. If Aaron Rodgers is still here in 2021 and you went ahead and made a preemptive strike and traded his receiver, that would further alienate him, his one target. Because if you look at his production relative to the rest of the receivers on the Green Bay Packers, it is just downright crazy that all the other receivers on the team, just wide receivers, not tight ends, not running backs catching passes, 88 catches, 1,390 yards, 11 touchdowns, 86.9 yards per game. He is the passing game as far as receivers are concerned. And Green Bay doesn't have a large history in recent years of paying receivers on a third contract. Greg Jennings was turning 30, let him go in 2013, but they also had Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson there. He went to the Vikings. Randall Cobb, 29, when he left after the 2018 season. He'd been unproductive the past couple of years. Jennings was coming off an injury-plagued year. Jordy Nelson did get a third contract, which took him from ages 29, 32 is what he played under. Got the extension in the final year of his contract, was coming off a year of 85 catches, 1,314 yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns. So Green Bay really doesn't have any other major contributor in the passing game, which also helps his leverage. But it would have to be a pretty penny to take care of him. And if you want to if you want to go year to year, second franchise tag in 2023 would be $24.044 million. Now, Green Bay's got some ways to shed salary cap room if they want to keep him long term, Adams that is. First is, if Aaron Rodgers is gone, that takes care of $22.648 million in cap space. That's what you get if he's not on the books in 2022, and then 2023 wipes out his salary as well. You've got Zadarius Smith, who's got the third highest cap number for an edge rusher, and Green Bay's pretty cap heavy at $28.13 million. Only thing is, he's 30 last year of the deal. Do you do an extension? If you're going to create cap room, it's going to be adding 4 dummy voidable years. Do you leave him alone? I got to say Preston Smith would be as good as gone. $19.75 million cap hit. Unless he just has a career year, you gain $2.5 million of cap room from him. Kenny Clark, whose deal that they have not restructured yet, $20.65 million cap hit in 2022, fifth largest cap number for an interior defensive lineman. You could convert $13 million or so, pick up $10.4 million of cap room if you put 2 voiding dummy years in his deal to stretch out the proration as far as possible. I'm assuming David Bakhtiari will get restructured again. He's got the third highest offensive lineman cap number, $22,768,014. If you don't add any dummy years and you do close to a maximum conversion, you're going to get close to $8 million in cap space from him. Jair Alexander will be in a contract year, 5th-year option, $13.294 million. You can chop his option year salary down to his league minimum, convert the rest into signing bonus. You should get anywhere from $6 to $8 million in cap room, depending upon how big of a signing bonus. So there are ways that Green Bay can work around this, but the most obvious thing is, from a cap standpoint, keeping Aaron Rodgers in 2022 difficult, and also Davante Adams at the same time. So Green Bay, typically for guys that they want to keep, will get a deal done be well in advance of free agency. Kenny Clark was done before the start of the regular season last year, Bakhtiari in the middle of the season. So we'll see if Adams gets done before the regular season starts. If this thing drags out through the season, and he's playing well, and we still don't know the certainty of Aaron Rodgers, does he want to take his chances and just kind of wait and see? I suspect Green Bay still franchises him and then goes from there. Would it be a tag and trade? I don't know, but if you want Davante Adams on a long-term basis, on an extension where it's essentially years 29, when he's 30, 31, 32, so to speak, I don't say you get him for anything under $25 million per year. And if I'm him, I want to be the highest paid non-quarterback, which is also the highest paid receiver. So we're talking basically $27.5 million per year on an extension for Davante Adams. Will it get done? I don't know. But this is the secondary issue to the primary issue, which is trying to mend fences with Aaron Rodgers.
This episode is brought to you by Xfinity. Do you like free stuff? Well, listen up. Xfinity Flex is a 4K streaming box you get free with Xfinity Internet. Plus, Peacock Premium is included at no extra cost. That's a win-win. If you have Xfinity Internet, entertainment starts at free with Flex. So go on, get really into your shows. Xfinity, it's a way better way to watch.
What's up? It's Mike Jones from the Football Jones podcast. I know you're enjoying your time with Inside the Cap, but once you're done, I want to invite you to come over and check out my podcast. Each week, we take a deep dive into some of the most pressing topics around the NFL. High-profile guests from the coach, player, and front office ranks, as well as the top league insiders. Check out the Football Jones podcast, another fine product brought to you by Empire Media.
The Ja'Wuan James situation took another turn on Friday when the Denver Broncos released Ja'Wuan James from the non-football injury list. As you know, James tore his Achilles tendon working out away from the Denver Broncos facility. He had been reportedly working out at the facility, but left on the advice of the NFLPA in their dispute with the NFL over the existence of off-season workouts, where part of their rationale is due to COVID that there really shouldn't have been off-season workout programs just like last year, so they should be virtual. He had a tweet Friday that if you're going to advise all of us, then you need to have our backs on the other end of this. The ramifications of this is, since he's being released with post-U1 designation, that one, they don't have to pay his salary. There's that memo sent out on May 5th reminding everybody, NFL clubs and more, I think it was more, the audience is really players, that injuries sustained by a player outside of working out or on a location other than NFL considered non-football injuries. So your skill injury and cap guarantees don't apply, and you don't have protections under paragraph 9 of your player contract where you're entitled to medical care, and for the season of injury only you get paid. So this puts James between a rock and a hard place, because he was scheduled to make $9.85 million this year. He had a $150,000 advance off of his salary because he opted out last year. He did have a 2022 injury guarantee, which $5 million, which is going to become fully guaranteed on the 5th day of the league year. Kiss that goodbye. There's been some talk that he would have gotten the 17th game check, which would have been about $588,000, but he wasn't going to be eligible for that anyway, being on NFI, non-football injury list. That one of the stipulations of that, besides having a contract that was in existence before the new CBA was ratified, not doing any major alterations, a simple restructure is fine, that you'd had to be on the 53-man roster injury reserve as of the 17th game to get the payment for the 17th game, or terminated previously and been eligible for termination pay, which he clearly is not in this case. So he's out the $9.85 million base salary. They don't have to provide a medical care. I suspect that the Broncos are taking this hardline stance with him at the direction of the NFL because they want to send a message in this whole fight with the NFLPA, where he's going to be made an example of. They easily could have kept him on on reserve NFI, and then decided on a week-to-week basis whether they want to pay him or not. But the cap consequences of the post-U1 designation are that he's going to count on the cap for now, and come June 2nd, there's only going to be a $3 million dead money charge and $6 million dead money charge in 2022, and he's off their books. I suspect that he's going to file a grievance through the NFLPA. This doesn't look like, in my opinion, it's going to be a grievance where he's got a great shot of prevailing. It's fair or not, it's been a pretty well-established fact that if you don't work out at a team facility, or you get hurt in the offseason, you get hurt and it's not under direction, supervision, control, or the team, they can do stuff like this. Granted, in a lot of cases, really you're doing a more hazardous activity, and basketball has been one of the major activities. First case of a basketball player I remember was Nate Odom's years ago, tearing an ACL. And the strange thing is, years ago, and you never see this happen today, that NFL teams had off-season basketball teams which would go and play other NFL teams or play teams in the community. The Cowboys used to do this. The 49ers used to do this. That was right when salary cap was coming into existence. That's a disaster waiting to happen, so you'd never see that happen nowadays. But he could take the approach, one of the arguments could be that this was quasi-approved, or the Broncos gave him a workout to do, so it was their tacit approval because it was designed by them. Or he could make an argument that this is retaliation because he opted out last year for COVID reasons. So they are retaliating against him in terms of taking the exercising their rights to the fullest extent. I think part of the reason they're going this way is that, one, when they signed him, they played 3 games that first year. They're paying him almost $13 million a year on a contract. Played 3 games because of the injury. Then he opts out. So typically teams are going to, the better player you are, the less likely they're going to go this route. But they went out and signed Bobby Massey and Cameron Fleming to play right tackle. So they've moved on. If I'm him, I might be turning my focus to the NFLPA because, but for listening to them, I'm not in this predicament because I'm working out at the team facility, and if I get hurt, I'm covered. I go on IR. I'm getting my money, and then if I have complications, can't recover, my injury guarantee could potentially kick in. If my career's over, then I have a year of injury protection benefit under the CBA. That's all gone. Or I'm looking at, I detrimentally relied on you guys for advice that's gotten me to where I am. Because what I wonder is how thoroughly the NFLPA explain the downside or the negative consequences to their constituency. I suspect it wasn't great. Otherwise, you have Patrick Mahomes coming out and saying they can take a contract away from working out. But that may be the way for him to go. One thing Denver's not going to be able to get back, which I always thought was a long shot, particularly now, was going to be signing bonus. The way signing bonus is worded, you actually have to have an ongoing breach. And since he's cut now, going back for the $3 million in signing bonus proration, seems like it's going to be a non-starter. Because when you typically you cut a guy, signing bonuses there's free and clear, and he hasn't gotten to a point where, for breach purposes, he's not providing services, which would be starting at training camp. So that's out of the question. But we'll see if he files a grievance. I suspect that the NFLPA will file a grievance on his behalf, partially because they don't want him turning their attention to their conduct. And it could be a way to try to induce some sort of settlement from the Broncos. But this is not the last you've heard of this story either. Any grievance, 40% of the disputed amount We'll count on the salary cap. I'm assuming that that's going to be the $9.85 million. So that would be a $3.94 million cap charge until there's a resolution on Denver's cap, should he decide to file a grievance.
Hey there, it's John Keim of the John Keim Report podcast. I'm glad you're enjoying the Inside the Cap podcast with Joel Corey. When you're done, I invite you to listen to my podcast. Twice a week, my guests and I discuss the Washington football team and the NFL. The show features numerous NFL insiders, former and current players and executives, and taps into the insight gained in my 25-plus years covering this franchise. Check out the John Keim Report, another fine product offered by Empire Media.
That's it for this week's Inside the Cap. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget, you can find me on Twitter. That is Corey Joel, CorryJoel, and also my regular Agents Take column at cbssports.com. Goodbye, and we'll see you next time.